Injuries equals opportunity in fantasy football. That's right. If you go back and look at the biggest drivers of value, when you look at ADPs in best ball and seasonal leagues, oftentimes you can look back and find an injury is the reason why a particular player underperformed. Now, does that mean we're going out and we're looking for players that were injured in week 8 last year? No. That's not what we're doing. We're actually looking for players whose 2024 season was laid low by injuries, oftentimes because they were rehabbing an injury throughout the 2024 offseason. They were never right, and that's why their fantasy output did not live up to their ADP. And now this year in 2025, these players are hugely discounted. So I have 10 players that are incredible values in fantasy football because of their injury history. Player number 1, J.J. McCarthy. Looking for a quarterback. J.J. McCarthy in Superflex and 2QB leagues is an incredible value. Look at the profile. The guy's 6'3", 220, so he has the size. Runs a 4.57, has the mobility. Threw 44 touchdowns, only 9 interceptions in those final 2 seasons at Michigan. At age 20, he won the national championship and decided to come out. And then what happened in preseason? Tore his meniscus. Ruined his season. But you tear your meniscus in the preseason, you get the repair done in August, you heal and you rehab throughout the 2024 offseason. He starts 2025, all systems go. Just like Jaden Daniels was all systems go last year. Well, J.J. McCarthy did not have that luxury. Now he is like a seasoned rookie. And though he was not the first pick in the draft, he was top 10. And he would have been the first pick in the draft had he come out this year. Fundamentally, J.J. McCarthy is a value because look at the players he is surrounded by. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, an elite pass-catching running back. Look at the ADPs for these players. Justin Jefferson's ADP is top 5. Jordan Addison's ADP is top 60. TJ Hawkinson's right there. Aaron Jones is right there. When you add up all the ADPs for Vikings players, their skill position players, J.J. McCarthy's ADP doesn't make any sense. That's why he is the singular best value in Superflex and 2QB leagues, because all we've seen from Minnesota is this glaring signal, this siren saying, hey, we let Sam Darnold go. We are perfectly fine and confident in J.J. McCarthy. He's a buy. As is Kirk Cousins. Now, when Kirk Cousins comes back, remember, he tore his Achilles in 2023, week 8. That is an incredibly long recovery cycle. You're in a boot for a very long time. Then you come out of that boot, your legs all atrophied. You're in physical therapy for many months. When the season started, he was not 100%. Everybody talked about the fact that Kirk Cousins was not 100% to start the season. He didn't have an off season to work with his new team, to build rapport. Now everyone's saying he's washed. Well, why don't we give the guy a chance to have a full off season, throwing footballs, running around, and he finds a team, and you're not allowed to be surprised when that team has some success. So wherever Kirk Cousins goes, you don't necessarily target Kirk Cousins. He's certainly going to be a value if he finds a team before fantasy draft season in Superflex and 2QB leagues. But regardless, look for wherever he lands, and the skill position players, the receivers on that team, will ultimately be a value because of the perception that he is washed. That is not fair because of the Achilles injury in 2023. Now it gets good. Now we've been talking about some good players. Running back, Christian McCaffrey. He's had a lot of injuries in his career, and we have an Injury Finder app. It predicts injuries. Injuries are predictable. Players are injury prone. The more injuries you have throughout your career, the more likely you are to suffer another injury, in particular lower body injuries, in the future. Christian McCaffrey's probability of getting injured because of this injury history is high, but this is a league-winning player who's no longer being drafted in the first round. He went from the 101 with that same injury history. Now, all of a sudden, he's out of the first round? If you can draft Christian McCaffrey in the second round of your fantasy draft, you must do it. He had 2 seasons with 30-plus fantasy points. No one does that. He strained his Achilles back in week 17 of 2023. So he was not able to have a healthy and productive offseason, and you could argue that that strained Achilles contributed to the sprained PCL, the knee sprain, that ended his 2024 season. But he had recovered by the end of the season from that knee sprain and is starting the 2025 offseason healthy ready to invest in his strength and conditioning, and ready to slay opponents in 2025. And the 49ers agree. They traded Jordan Mason, and they didn't draft a running back of consequence. I mean, Jordan James, his ceiling is Jordan Mason. So the 49ers divested themselves of running back talent because they're so confident in what they have in Christian McCaffrey this year. And you can be confident that when he is playing, he is going to give you 25-plus fantasy point upside. And when he's not playing, you put in someone else. That's just how it goes with Christian McCaffrey. You have to draft him. But you don't have to draft a guy like Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL in week 7. What does that mean? That means he's not going to be able to participate in the off-season program at full strength. He has to go in and get the reconstructive surgery. Then his leg is in a brace, and his leg atrophies, and he loses all of that muscle. Then he has to come back and work on getting all of his mobility back, getting his strength back. And by this time, the season is starting. That's why many of these players end up on the PUP, and they're never 100%. They never deliver on their fantasy ADP because their season was ruined before it even started. But that's not the case with a guy like Chris Olave. Chris Olave has a concussion. It was severe, and he's fully recovered. Yes, it was scary, but it doesn't affect his availability in the offseason program or during the regular season in 2025. We've seen players that have had these big scares like Tua Tagovailoa, Jordan Reed. They have come back and they have been productive fantasy assets for many years before their next concussion. You could argue that the player that suffered the most from a concussion, that truly derailed his career, was Antonio Brown. That hit by Vontaze Burfict, he was never the same, on or off the field. Chris Olave is going to be fine. Now there's Cooper Kupp. Back in 2022, Cooper Kupp had a severe ankle injury. It led to a tightrope procedure. He then re-sprained that ankle at the beginning of 2024, and yet he came back, and from week 8 to week 14, he averaged 18 fantasy points per game, re-injures the ankle again, and was a shell of his former self for the final few games of the season. The Seahawks are betting that at age 32, he has a full off season to work on his strength and conditioning, especially around that ankle. And I expect him to be full go week 1 and to look like vintage Cooper Kupp. Players with the Cooper Kupp type game, these slot flankers, they look like Larry Fitzgerald, Anquan Bolden, and they have long careers in the NFL. It is very possible that Cooper Kupp solves this ankle dilemma and has a productive next few years. And he's a great value. Being drafted in round 8, 9, 10 in best ball, you got to get him because the Seahawks are consolidating their offense. They're adding tight ends. They're going to have Jackson Smith-Njigba and Cooper Kupp and running backs on the field. That means Kupp and JSN are going to hog the targets, but look at the difference in ADP. Between JSN and Cooper Kupp, it's too wide, and there's an arbitrage opportunity there. And there are multiple opportunities in Indianapolis, starting with Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman had a 2.08 yards per route run in 2023. That was top 25 among NFL wide receivers, and he also posted over 150 targets that year. Then in 2024, he strains his back at the beginning of the year. Misses one game, but had 11 games on the injury report. Do you think that had anything to do with Michael Pittman posting a 1.39 yards per route run? His targets crashing down to 111 from 156? Think that had anything to do with it? Those 11 games on the injury report with a strained back? Well, guess what? Strained muscles heal in the back and everywhere else. Michael Pittman is an alpha receiver. He's going way too late in best ball leagues. And we talked earlier about Christian McCaffrey, former 101, now going in the second round. Well, that's also Jonathan Taylor, except Jonathan Taylor goes late second round. He suffered a high ankle sprain in week 4. And a high ankle sprain does not mean, oh, you're out 3 or 4 games, you come back, you're 100%. No. You miss a few games with that high ankle sprain, and then you're not yourself for 2 months because there are microfractures at the interface of the fibula and the tibula. And those don't take weeks, they take months to heal. But when Jonathan Taylor finally got his ankle right, and unlike Cooper Kupp, we've seen Jonathan Taylor with an ankle perfectly right as rain. And what did he do? 39.8 fantasy points, 27.6 fantasy points, and 25.0 fantasy points to close out the 2024 season. And he was the best ball hero. You needed Jonathan Taylor to win all the money in best ball last year. It wasn't Saquon Barkley. And yet Saquon Barkley is going at the 101 and Jonathan Taylor is going at the end of the second round. That doesn't make any sense. The high ankle sprain has created value on Jonathan Taylor. And I'll make a bold prediction right now that's not so bold. It'll be Christian McCaffrey or Jonathan Taylor that wins all the money. First place in the Flex 4 game on Fast Draft. $10,000 to first will likely go to someone who drafted Christian McCaffrey or Jonathan Taylor in the second round. Use promo code PODFATHER to get a $50 deposit match on Fast Draft. The code is PODFATHER, and that's $50. And a broken fibula has created value for Isiah Pacheco because Isiah Pacheco came back last year. His leg was in a cast. He had no muscle left after it all atrophied throughout the healing process. And yet he tried to work himself back, get the physical therapy, strengthen that leg as much as he could, but it was not 100% last year. This is why he posted an 8.4% juke rate, evaded tackles per touch on playerprofiler.com. That was close to league bottom. No one should be surprised after coming back from a broken leg that he wasn't that elusive. But fundamentally, we know he runs a 4.37. And the Chiefs did not invest in a running back until Brashard Smith, a satellite back, on day 3. That showed great confidence that they believe Isiah Pacheco will be back this year and he will be 100% for the first time in 2 years. And I'm excited to see it, and I'm excited to draft him in fantasy football. I'm also excited to draft Kenneth Walker because every year he strains his oblique, right? You know Kenneth Walker is going to strain an oblique, but a strained oblique is not a chronic problem. It's a soft tissue injury, and the probability of yet another oblique injury for Kenneth Walker is not so much higher this year just because he's had 2 in his career. Matthew Stafford broke his collarbone twice and hasn't broken it since. Most importantly, Kenneth Walker put up 16.5 fantasy points per game in the games he played. He was top 5 in route participation, top 5 in catch rate, and he was number 4 in target share. Kenneth Walker became a completely different football player, a true all-purpose running back, and that has been lost, subsumed by this narrative that he is injury-prone. And yes, he has suffered some injuries, and his injury probability in the injury finder, you can see it for yourself. It is higher than average. But like Christian McCaffrey, if Kenneth Walker is healthy, he is going to be an RB1 in fantasy football. And when he's out, you play somebody else. It's just that simple. You got to draft him. And I'm drafting Marshawn Lloyd late. Oh, yes. Marshawn Lloyd's 220. He runs a sub 4.540. That's a 111.2 speed score, upper 90th percentile on playerprofiler.com. And there's no one behind him. It's just Josh Jacobs, whose efficiency has been waning the last couple years, and this big, explosive mystery box running back, right? We don't know what he's going to be in the NFL, but we know he's big. We know he's athletic. And he had a hamstring strain, which then led to a severe ankle sprain. And then before he could come back from that, he had to have an appendectomy. He had to have surgery on his abdomen, and he was out, and his season was over. This is the classic struck by lightning 3 times bad luck season. You lean into the variance, buy the bad luck player who is an injury away from being a workhorse in Green Bay with big upside. I love stashing Marshawn Lloyd late.